Some disappearances happen quietly. No witnesses, no recordings, no answers. Others refuse to disappear. They return years later, through fragments, a leaked transcript, a recovered video, a recording no one can fully explain. This is one of those cases. In October of 2021, a routine missing person call inside a protected forest in Northern California escalated into something far more disturbing. 3 people vanished. Only one piece of evidence remained: third police body camera recording. And the more investigators reviewed it, the clearer one thing became: this was not an accident. This is the case known as missing in the woods. Before we continue this story, I want to make a special invitation to you who made it this far. If you enjoy real mysteries, dark cases, and stories that history tried to hide, then take a moment now and subscribe to the channel Archivos do Inexplicável. It helps our work immensely and ensures you won't miss the next episodes. Every week we bring new stories, always with deep research and cinematic storytelling. And do me a favor, leave a like right now. It's a simple gesture, but it makes all the difference for the channel. YouTube understands that the content is worth watching and shows it to more people. And I'd like to get to know you better. Comment below which city you're watching from and what time it is there right now. I read every comment, and I'm always amazed to see how far the stories from this channel reach. All right, now we can continue. Let's return to the case. Red Pine Forest Reserve spans more than 200 square miles, dense woodland, steep ravines, restricted conservation zones. On paper, it is described as a protected ecological area. In reality, locals describe it very differently. They say people lose track of time there. They say GPS devices fail without warning. They say voices can be heard deep in the woods, voices that don't belong to anyone. Park rangers rarely speak about it publicly, but in private many admit the same thing. Some parts of the forest don't behave the way they should. And Red Pine is one of those places. Ethan Walker was 28 years old, an environmental science graduate, an experienced hiker, an outdoor photographer. He was not reckless, he was not impulsive, and he was not inexperienced. Friends described him as methodical, quiet, observant, the kind of person who noticed details others ignored. On October 17, 2021, Ethan entered Red Pine Forest Reserve at 3:40 in the afternoon. He signed the visitor log, showed his planned route, listed his campsite. He told the ranger he would be back by noon the next day. Nothing about his behavior suggested danger. Nothing, except one thing. At 4:12 p.m., Ethan unexpectedly returned to the ranger station. According to the ranger on duty, his expression had changed, focused but unsettled. Ethan asked a single question, a question the ranger would never forget. "Do people ever hear voices out here that don't belong to anyone?" The ranger assumed it was a joke. Ethan didn't smile. He waited for an answer. The ranger explained how sound travels in the forest. Wind, animals, echoes. Ethan listened carefully, then replied quietly, "That's not what this is." He turned and walked back into the trees. At 6:12 p.m., Ethan Walker posted a photo to social media. The image showed a narrow forest trail disappearing into thick fog. Tall trees leaned inward, blocking most of the sky. The caption was short: "Strangest silence I've ever heard out here." Friends commented within minutes. Some joked, some asked if he was scared. Ethan never replied. That photo would later become part of the official case file. When investigators later reviewed Ethan's GPS data, they noticed something unusual. Between 6:30 p.m. and 8 p.m., his movement pattern repeated itself. The same stretch of trail, again and again. At first, it was dismissed as a GPS malfunction, but when the data was overlaid with official trail maps, the pattern remained consistent. Ethan wasn't wandering randomly. He was walking and returning to the same place, as if he couldn't leave it. At 9:41 p.m., emergency services received a call from Ethan Walker's phone. The connection was unstable. The call lasted 1 minute and 38 seconds. Ethan's voice was calm, too calm. I think someone's out here with me. The dispatcher asked if he could see anyone. There was a pause. Then Ethan said, I can hear them. They keep calling my name. The dispatcher asked how many people there were. Ethan hesitated. It sounds like one person, but it doesn't stay in one place. The dispatcher asked for his location. Ethan began to answer, then stopped. His breathing changed, and his final words were, it moved again. The call ended. At 10:02 p.m., the call was escalated. 2 officers were dispatched to Red Pine Forest Reserve. Officer Daniel Harper, age 35. Officer Lucas Moreno, age 31. Both had years of field experience. Neither had ever responded to a nighttime call inside Red Pine Forest. They arrived at the trailhead at 10:17 p.m. As the patrol vehicle doors opened, both officers activated their body cameras. Fog drifted slowly across the headlights. The forest stood completely still. No insects, no birds, no wind. Officer Harper broke the silence. It's quiet. Then, after a moment, too quiet. Moreno nodded. Neither of them smiled. The officers stepped off the gravel and onto the trail. Almost immediately, the environment changed. The air felt heavier. The temperature dropped. Their flashlights cut narrow paths through the fog. Radio chatter faded into static. Moreno tried to adjust the frequency. Nothing. Harper spoke quietly, almost instinctively. Feels like the sound just stops out here. They continued walking, unaware that this was the last time their movements would feel normal. At 10:31 p.m., the Bodycam audio captured something faint. A voice, soft, close. It said one word, Daniel. Harper stopped immediately. Moreno looked at him. Did you say something? Harper shook his head. No. The voice had sounded human, calm, and far too close to be an echo. They turned their flashlights toward the trees. There was nothing there. At 10:38 p.m., the officers noticed something ahead on the trail. Harper slowed his pace. Moreno lifted his flashlight. There, beside a tree, sat a backpack, placed neatly, upright, not dropped. Harper approached carefully. This has to be his. The backpack showed no signs of damage, no torn fabric, no dirt, no sign of a struggle. Moreno frowned. Why would someone leave it like this? Harper didn't answer. He unzipped the bag slowly. Inside, everything was organized. Food, water, emergency supplies, and a camera. Moreno said it out loud. This looks deliberate. The officers didn't review the camera footage immediately. Protocol required them to log it first, but Harper hesitated. Something about the situation felt staged. He turned the camera on. The Bodycam audio recorded a soft click. The first video clip appeared on the screen. Ethan Walker sat in front of the camera, his face illuminated by headlamp light. He was whispering, not because he was hiding, but because he didn't want to be heard. It keeps sounding like someone I know. The video ended. Harper pressed play again. The second clip began abruptly. Ethan's breathing was heavier now. The camera shook slightly. I think it's standing where I just was. Harper glanced up from the screen. Moreno watched the trees. Neither spoke. The clip cut out. Harper opened the final file. In the last video, Ethan's voice barely held steady. It learned my name. The recording ended. No explanation, no background noise, just silence. Harper lowered the camera. Moreno swallowed hard. That's not fear, he said quietly. That's realization. As Harper placed the camera back into the backpack, the forest sound shifted. Not louder, not quieter. Different. A subtle pressure filled the air. Like the moment before a storm. Harper felt it immediately. So you feel that too, Moreno said. Harper nodded. Neither of them moved. Then the Bodycam audio picked it up. A voice. Clearer this time, coming from deeper in the trees. Help me. It sounded exactly like Ethan. Same tone, same pacing. But something was wrong. The pause between the words was too long, too measured, as if the voice were being constructed. Moreno whispered, That's not him. The voice spoke again. I'm right here. This time it came from a different direction. Harper's grip tightened on his flashlight. Moreno turned slowly. The trees stood motionless. No movement, no footsteps, just the voice, repeating itself, each time, slower, flatter, less human. And then it stopped. Harper spoke under his breath. "It's not lost." Moreno looked at him. "It's not running." Harper finished the thought. "It's waiting." The officers continued forward, not because they wanted to, but because turning back no longer felt possible. The trail ahead looked familiar, too familiar. Harper slowed down. "We've been here before." Moreno checked the GPS. The screen flickered, then froze. Same coordinates. No movement registered. They were walking, but the device said otherwise. They kept moving. Minutes later, they passed a fallen tree lying across the trail. Moreno pointed his flashlight at it. "I remember that." They walked another 100 yards, then stopped. The same fallen tree stood in front of them again. Same position, same broken branches. Harper felt his stomach tighten. "We didn't turn," he said. Moreno didn't respond. Harper lifted his radio. "Dispatch, this is Harper. We're experiencing GPS issues." Static answered him. He tried again. Nothing. Moreno switched frequencies. The radio hissed softly, then died. No signal, no emergency tone, just silence. Moreno said quietly, "We're cut off." The temperature dropped again, not gradually. Instantly. Their breath became visible. Fog thickened around them. The forest pressed closer. Harper felt pressure in his ears, like being underwater. Moreno rubbed his arms. "This isn't weather," he said. Harper nodded. "It's local." The Bodycam audio captured something new. Footsteps, slow, measured. Behind them. Harper turned sharply, flashlight sweeping. Nothing. The footsteps stopped. Moreno whispered, "Don't move." They stood still. The forest stood still with them. Then the footsteps resumed, closer but never visible. Without warning, the voice spoke again. This time, from directly behind them. "You found me." The tone was calm, certain, almost relieved. Harper spun around. The Bodycam glitched violently. Static tore across the screen. Audio warped. For several seconds, only distorted motion remained. When the video stabilized, Harper and Moreno were no longer standing where they had been. The trail behind them was gone. Trees closed in on all sides. Moreno's breathing quickened. "Where's the path?" Harper turned in a slow circle. There was no clear direction, no entrance, no exit. Just forest. Harper said it out loud. "Why, we didn't move." Moreno's voice dropped. "It let us in." Harper didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both understood. This wasn't pursuit. This wasn't confusion. This was containment. Harper raised his radio one last time. "Dispatch, if you can hear this." The radio crackled. A voice came through, not dispatch, not human. "Daniel." Harper froze. Moreno stared at him. "That's your name." Harper lowered the radio slowly. The voice repeated itself, clearer, more accurate. "Daniel Harper." The forest went silent. Even the fog stopped moving. The voice spoke one final time. "You can stop now." The Bodycam shook violently. The image distorted. The recording timestamp froze at 10:57 p.m. Then, nothing. The last recoverable frame from the Bodycam lasts less than a second. Investigators enhanced it repeatedly, stabilized it, brightened it, slowed it down. In that final frame, something stands between the trees. Not approaching, not retreating, just there. Human in shape, but wrong in proportion. Its arms appear too long, its posture too rigid, and its head tilted slightly to the side, as if listening. The image cuts to black. At 11:05 p.m., dispatch attempted to re-establish contact. No response. At 11:15, backup units were dispatched. At 11:42, search and rescue teams were notified. No one reached the officers that night. The forest remained silent. At dawn, more than 40 personnel entered Red Pine Forest. Police, rangers, volunteers. They followed the GPS ping from the patrol vehicle. They found it easily. parked exactly where it had been left, doors unlocked, keys inside, radios still on. But Harper and Moreno were gone. Search teams expected footprints, broken branches, dragged equipment. They found none. The ground showed no disturbance, not even animal tracks. It was as if 3 people had simply stopped existing. Even trained trackers couldn't find a direction to follow. Ethan Walker's phone was found 200 yards from the patrol car, placed on a flat rock, screen intact, battery still charged. The last message unsent. It read, "It's standing where I just was." No timestamp. 2 days later, a ranger noticed something unusual along an unmarked section of the trail. On a tree stump carefully placed sat Officer Harper's body camera. Not dropped, not damaged, placed, facing the trail, as if someone wanted it to be found. There were no fingerprints, no DNA, no footprints. The footage was classified immediately. Only a small internal team was allowed to review it. Several members later requested removal. One investigator described the experience as watching something learn how to be human. Another refused to finish the footage. 3 weeks later, authorities released a brief statement. The incident was classified as joint disappearance due to environmental factors. No further details were provided. The case was closed. Privately, investigators raised serious concerns. The voice patterns on the recording were analyzed. Each repetition improved. The pronunciation became cleaner, the pauses more natural, the tone more convincing, as if whatever was speaking was practicing. Some suggested psychological stress, hallucinations, group panic. But this theory failed to explain the repeating trail, the GPS contradictions, the precise use of names, the final image, the deliberate placement of the camera. Too many variables didn't fit. Others suggested a human presence, someone hiding in the forest, someone imitating voices. But no footprints were found, no camps, no evidence of survival, no explanation for how 3 people vanished without sound. A small group of analysts came to a different conclusion. They noted a pattern across similar cases. Voices, names, imitation, not pursuit, not attack, but engagement, as if the forest wasn't hostile, as if it was curious and learning. When analysts expanded the scope of the investigation, they found something deeply unsettling. The Red Pine case was not isolated. Across the United States, dozens of disappearances shared the same elements: experienced hikers, sudden silence in wildlife GPS failures, voices calling victims by name, calm behavior, moments before vanishing. Most disturbing of all, many of the missing were last heard speaking to something they could not see. Several investigators privately linked the case to a classification known unofficially as Missing 411. Disappearances that defy terrain logic, searches that end without evidence, victims who seem to vanish mid-movement. In these cases, the environment itself appears to participate. Forests, mountains, national parks, places that feel ancient, places that don't react the way they should. One behavioral analyst focused on the voices, specifically how they changed. Early recordings sounded imperfect, flat, almost mechanical. Later recordings sounded natural, concerningly natural. The conclusion was simple and terrifying. Whatever was speaking was learning, not copying blindly, adapting, refining, understanding cadence, emotion, timing, learning how to sound human. One question haunted investigators: why return the camera? Why place it carefully instead of destroying it? The analyst's conclusion was brief. It wanted to be understood, not feared, not chased, acknowledged. The footage wasn't a warning. It was documentation. Officers who reviewed the footage reported lingering effects, nightmares, auditory hallucinations, a persistent feeling of being watched. One investigator resigned within a month. His exit interview contained only one sentence: "Some things don't hunt, they wait." The final internal theory was never written into any report. It suggested that something within the forest does not perceive humans as threats, but as references, sources of sound, movement, identity. It doesn't chase, it doesn't rush, it listens. And once it understands you well enough, you stop needing to exist separately. 6 months after the case was closed, a park ranger reported something unusual. At dusk, near the same trail entrance, he heard a voice. Clear, calm, professional. It said, "Dispatch, this is Officer Harper. We have visual." The ranger froze. There were no officers assigned to that area, no radios active, no one there. To this day, Ethan Walker was never found. Officer Daniel Harper was never found. Officer Lucas Moreno was never found. Red Pine Forest remains open. Visitors continue to enter. Occasionally, someone reports hearing their name. Park officials explain it away. Wind, stress, imagination. But rangers follow one rule now. If you hear a voice calling you from the trees, and you can't see anyone, you do not answer. Some disappearances leave questions, others leave recordings, and some leave behind something worse. The certainty that whatever took them is still there. Listening, learning, waiting. If you were in that forest, and you heard your name being called, would you answer? Comment below what you think happened, and if you want more real cases like this, dark, documented, and deeply unsettling, subscribe to the channel. Because some stories don't stay buried, they wait to be heard.